This video was proudly brought to you by Skillshare. So before we start today's video, I just want to go through some tweets I found on Twitter in regards to Rian Johnson. Now keep in mind these tweets are all real, I did not make any of them up. Hate leads to the dark side, which will hopefully choke the shit out of Rian Johnson's career. That is totally a normal thing to say. Wow, very, very normal indeed. Steaming pile of shit over The Last Jedi. Go ahead and unfollow me. In case you haven't noticed, I don't give a fuck. It's the worst movie ever made and Rian Johnson can drop dead. Now would it surprise you if I said this was tweeted by Stormy Daniels? Well, it fucking shouldn't surprise you because it was tweeted by Stormy Daniels. Did you enjoy joining Kathleen Kennedy in raping Luke Skywalker and Carrie Fisher's dead body? Okay, so I think that's enough. Today I really want to talk about Rian Johnson, and more specifically the hate he has received because of the latest Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. A bit of background about Johnson before we really get into this, but the filmmaker has made 4 feature films. Brick, which was very good. The Brothers Bloom was good. Looper, very good. And The Last Jedi, which is good. For me, he is 4 from 4. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of The Last Jedi. As I said earlier, I think it's good, but I can't call it a masterpiece or a total reinvention of the franchise. That said, I can't really call it a train wreck or the worst thing ever. I'm sort of in the middle. I think it's a perfectly acceptable Star Wars movie, with some of the best moments in the franchise. Specifically, this scene. And this one.
We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
And this one.
See you around, kid.
The point is, The Last Jedi is good. And if you don't like the film, that is totally fine. I honestly think what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi was truly astonishing. Johnson set out to tell a story of hope, loss, the progression of power, and what it truly means to be a legend. And in my opinion, the filmmaker succeeded in all those areas. It is extremely rare that a director is given absolute freedom in regards to a blockbuster, especially a Star Wars film. A few examples of filmmakers being forced to abide by executive decisions resulted in movies such as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Fantastic Four, Suicide Squad, Thor: The Dark World, and of course, Justice League.
I take it back. I want to die.
All those films pushed for new and interesting ideas only to be turned into corporate monstrosities. Films are no longer films, they're just installments, setting up prequels and sequels and spin-offs. That was where The Last Jedi really impressed me. This was a film that had no interest in what came before and zero remorse for what comes after. This was a singular story. Now of course episode 9 is still coming out, but Johnson got to tell the story he wanted to tell, and fans did not respond in the best way possible.
What does that make ketchup?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, I've seen many people talk about this video from the early 2000s where a young and pre-Star Wars Rian Johnson explains that he'd rather make a movie that 50% of people love and 50% of people hate than a movie that is 100% hated or obviously 100% loved.
Having those two extremes to me is, is the mark of the type of movie that I want to make.
This video comes up often in regards to how Johnson is now blocking people who send him death threats and say he raped their childhood. Sound familiar?
George Lucas raped our childhood. George Lucas raped our childhood. George Lucas raped our child.
The problem here is this. While Johnson did say he wanted to make a divisive film, which he did, I do not think he meant divisive in the sense that people sent him death threats every single day for the past 6 months. He just meant he wanted to make a movie that evokes genuine discussion. Recently, Kelly Marie Tran, the actress who plays Rose Tico in the film, deleted her Instagram because of racist and sexist insults. In response to this, I saw an argument on Twitter where some user said to blame Rian Johnson and not Tran, which is the equivalent of saying, no, don't bully this kid, Go bully this other kid. The problem is that we are not saying don't fucking bully anyone. We are blaming the victim and not the attacker, something that is happening in all walks of life. Johnson seems like a very, very nice guy, who has nothing but love for the brand and the fans who have made it so remarkable. The Star Wars fan base has been infamous for pushing people away from not only the franchise, but from Hollywood. And I would absolutely hate for that to happen to Johnson. Thankfully, Disney are forging ahead with the filmmaker's standalone Star Wars trilogy, an idea that was announced before the divisive response to The Last Jedi. I think the point of this video is this: filmmakers are people too. This whole Rian Johnson situation reminds me a lot of George Lucas during the prequel era. I distinctly remember reading an interview with the filmmaker where he was asked if he wanted to do another Star Wars movie, to which he responded, "Why would I want to make any more when everybody yells at you all the time and says what a terrible person you are?" It gets a little ridiculous when the creator of the franchise can't even tell his story because the fan base is so against it. I imagine Johnson felt a hell of a lot worse when reading the replies and tweets aimed at him for the past 6 months than Lucas ever did. Partially because Johnson is just a fan. Ultimately, he's a fan that got a dream job. He got to make a Star Wars movie. All of that said, I actually understand the disappointment with The Last Jedi. I'm not some blind fanboy who will not listen to other people's opinions. That's silly. But I draw the line when you start calling a director a rapist or has said that he's ruined a property. Characters evolve and they grow. The fact that Johnson had the balls to make Skywalker an angry and bitter old man instead of some goddamn hero was something particularly fascinating to me. It actually meant something and was more than just useless fan service. Regardless, I am the poster boy for disappointing movies. I was excited for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Fantastic Four, Suicide Squad, and of course, Justice League.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
I get it. I understand being disappointed. But that said, you do not see me sending death threats to Joss Whedon every fucking day. Because at the end of the day, it's just a goddamn movie. And at the end of the day, these are just goddamn people. And whether you like it or not, Rian Johnson did what he wanted to do. He made a fucking Star Wars movie. More importantly, he made his Star Wars movie. And I think to any aspiring filmmaker, to any fan of Star Wars, I think that's incredibly inspirational. So instead of sending that death threat, or instead of sending that insult, just don't send anything. Trust me, you'll make a man very, very happy. Before I head off, I'd like to give a huge shout out to this week's wonderful sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in storyboarding, directing, screenwriting, cinematography, and much, much more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high quality classes from experts working in their fields, so you can unlock new opportunities, improve your skills, and do the work that you love. Skillshare is also more affordable than most learning platforms out there. An annual subscription works out to less than $10 a month. One of the most underrated and incredibly overlooked aspects of filmmaking is the actual storyboarding process. You know, you sort of think, why do I have to do this? Being young, being excited over the prospect of shooting something, you just want to go out there and shoot your shot. When I was going through Skillshare, I came across a wonderful class by the name Storyboarding for Film, Illustrating Scripts and Stories by Ryan Faulkner. The class is insanely straightforward and incredibly beneficial. When I was shooting my first music video recently, I mapped out a massive book of storyboards thanks to Faulkner's awesome class. The first 500 people who click the link in the description below or the link that appears on screen right now will get a 2-month free trial for Skillshare. Although I will say, please do it as soon as possible because these spots, they run out pretty quickly. So I would like to thank Skillshare again for sponsoring this video, and I would just like to give you guys a bit of backstory on this new In Praise Of thing I'm working on. So as you saw by this episode today, In Praise Of is a new sort of series. It's basically me taking what I think works the best on the channel, which is positive videos about things that people don't really talk positively about, and doing it in a way that's sort of unique and interesting. Next week's video is going to be on Colin Trevorrow's 2015 film, Jurassic World. Of course, in honour of Fallen Kingdom, which I really liked. Leave a comment down below of what you want to see. And the comment with the most likes, you run the risk of getting chosen. So I want to thank Skillshare again. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Please check out Skillshare, check out my other videos down below, and I will see you next week when we talk about Jurassic World. Bye.